believe the current federal polls, the Liberals are set to soar to victory come September 20th. The only question, whether they'll land another minority government or secure that majority Trudeau so desperately wants. The same polls show Erin O'Toole's Conservatives at risk of actually losing seats. But as we've learned time and time again over the last decade, political polls are less than reliable. The latest example? Yesterday's provincial election in Nova Scotia. There, despite polls predicting a Liberal win, Tim Houston's progressive Conservatives pulled off a surprise victory. Now, there's obviously a limit to how many parallels you can draw between an East Coast provincial election and the upcoming federal one. But the upset does suggest Liberal seats may not be quite as secure as polls predict, and Conservatives may not be quite so doomed. I know it's practically a cliche at this point, but campaigns do matter. Liberal incumbent Ian Rankin stumbled in a couple areas in Nova Scotia. He couldn't explain away not one but two drunk driving charges. His party also took a big hit when they forced the resignation of candidate Robin Ingraham over some rather innocuous boudoir photos. Now, the federal Libs have been playing political scandal Russian roulette for a few years now. So far, none of their missteps have proven fatal, but it's really only a matter of time. There will eventually be a defining scandal Trudeau can't explain away, or worse, pin on an unsuspecting female cabinet minister. We're less than a week into campaign season, and there have already been some pretty significant trip-ups by the Liberals. First, they announced a self-serving election as the Taliban took Afghanistan, and Afghans who worked with Canada feared for their lives. Another screw-up was Trudeau's not-so-mandatory vaccine mandate for federal workers. After he bashed the Conservatives' vaccine position, it turned out that, oops, the Liberal policy was practically identical. This resulted in a lot of awkward backtracking and rescinding of official policy documents, and what became clear was Trudeau's planned key wedge issue was nothing more than a farce. The vaccine issue and the Afghanistan issue aren't going away anytime soon. So far, the Liberals have failed to present coherent policies that align with their self-styled moral superiority. And similarly, the boudoir saga shows voters' patience is wearing thin with so-called progressive politicians whose actions still represent old-school thinking. If a leader claims to support women or even be a feminist, they better be prepared to walk the talk. Trudeau's Liberals are all too happy to make a big show of supporting women, Indigenous peoples, and other minorities, but fail these same groups over and over again. Voters aren't dumb, and Trudeau's moral benefit of the doubt is wearing pretty thin. Another reason Nova Scotia's election was interesting, because in a kind of odd reversal of traditional positions, the PC ran on a platform that promised more spending, while the Liberals were in favor of austerity. The PC's proposed spending specifically targeted the healthcare sector, which understandably became the election's major issue. Now, we see this somewhat mirrored on the federal level. While the Liberals are certainly not running on promises of austerity, the Conservative platform does include a lot more spending than we typically expect from the party. It includes spending on historically left-wing darlings like mental health care, childcare, parental leave, and the tourism and hospitality sectors. This change in fiscal attitude could convince some disillusioned Liberals to cross party lines. Finally, the Nova Scotia PC benefited from a strong NDP performance. They took an impressive 21% of the vote. If the NDP sees a similar surge on the federal level, a Liberal majority looks a lot less likely. Here's the bottom line. The outcome of Canada's 44th election is no sure thing. Campaign season has only just begun, and despite what the polls say, a lot can happen between now and Election Day.